Hello and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Illustrator by Edjonis Technologies. In this lecture, we're going to be going over the perspective grid, and I'm just using it right here kind of to show you, give you an idea of what it does, what it can do. Anyway, first thing is that this is going to be just over the perspective grid, and it can be kind of dry, so what I want you to do is go up and look up these types of drawings that are done with the perspective grid. Do that now or do it later. I'll remind you later. But this is 3-point perspective, this is 1-point perspective, and this is 2-point perspective. This is the one we're going to be using in the next two videos, which are going to be drawing the perspective grid. It's going to be all about drawing with it and creating stuff. But before you get into this and you decide to skip these next three videos, look up what you can do. So Google best 1-point perspective drawings, things like that. Best 2-point, best 3-point perspective drawings. Or good 2-point perspective. You probably don't need to use the word drawing. And just go to images and see what you get. Hopefully that will inspire you to want to use this tool, which is very powerful because it determines, what you draw, and you can use it for all of the different functions and resize it. When you drag something away, it stays in perspective, of course. So you can use it to create shapes. And three-dimensional objects. So stay tuned for those videos and that, but in this video we're going to show you how to set it up. So look up those terms, look up those images. If you don't believe me that this is really awesome. So we're first going to start out with view, and we're going to go to perspective grid and show grid, which is Shift-Control-I shortcut key. You should know what that is for a Mac by now. If you don't, if you're just jumping in this video, look up the shortcut key differences. Essentially, the option is Alt, Windows, Option on Mac, and Control and Command are interchangeable, Mac versus Windows. So whenever I say one, I might not say the other. It depends on how important the function is, essentially. But as you see, we brought up our perspective tool. I did this with two artboards, so you can see what happens when you have two artboards. When I hit Shift-O, brings up my artboard selection. And just click an arrow to get out of that. So what you want to do if you want to change the perspective, we'll go into, because now I need to change the perspective to be in the center of this artboard and spaced out. Now over in your tools panel, you'll see the perspective grid tool. It's also shortcut key Shift-P, it's the same on Mac and Windows. Go ahead and click that. And you'll see a number of handles come up. If you click on the center one, basically dragging the outside diamonds, you can raise or lower the rise line of the perspective. So by dragging it down, you're looking at it from a lower angle and perfectly flat. You would have a very steep, dramatic angle, say, for a building. I clicked the wrong thing there. I'm just going to undo. Everything is together. If you raised it really high up, it'd almost be like an aerial view. And then you could drag this down so that you're actually above this line. And this line, basically, or this anchor point, I should say, determines the height of the view. It's described differently, but essentially that's what it does. It would take you a while to figure that out, just from the actual drawings. You kind of envision this as a building, is what I do. Anyway, these circles here will move it in That's why it wasn't moving. This moves your vanishing points. And this is the right perspective grid, and this is the left one. To change how far this extends, just click on this little, it's called a widget. If you hear someone say widget, that's what these little diamonds are. And it creates more grid points along the perspective. These things that I'm showing you right now don't change the perspective. They just create more grid points. Or you can click this widget right here, and you can increase the grid size and decrease the grid size. What does change the perspective is the horizon line widget right here will change the horizon line. And this thing I showed you before just changes the amount of grid lines, cells, in between the bottom and the horizon here. It's not technically the horizon line, so you want to use this to actually change it, not like what I did before. So I'll set up something kind of steep, because in the next video we're going to be drawing things, like I said. And so these ones right here, the ones in the bottom left and right, those are what you use to move your grid. So horizon line, move, change the amount of cells, cell size, widget, and right side, left side, extension of the grid. And you can get rid of the grid completely too if you're just using this and you don't want that interfering. You can also change a lot of other settings, which I'm about to get into. And these are change vanishing points. And this is called your station point right here. If you can't see it, you have to move this thing. And this just changes the orientation of the rulers, but not the actual rulers. Just if you're, it changes the, basically, it's the zero orientation of your perspective grid. We might come into that later. We might get into this a little bit later. But this is your station point. Over these, you can't see it right now because it's locked. These little handles that hang off of it will move your perspective grid. So you can move these way out. This would be for if you're drawing some buildings. And it's for some interesting views. Just look up different two-point perspective views. There's actually a few things I'm going to ask you to look up after this video is over before you start on the next ones. Or even now if you think this is boring. I want you to see what you can create with it. And that's, I'm going to tell you what those are when we go into the different views you can show. These little sliders basically just move the perspective grid so you can do different things. But right now, we're going to unlock station point, which I believe is locked by default. Under view and perspective grid, just go to lock station point to lock it. So mine was actually unlocked. But essentially, when the station point is locked, you can drag these vanishing points here, and you can change the angle because it's just pivoting on the station point. Generally change my grid size to what I can see on here. I usually move these out a little bit. You're going to want these very opaque. Like I said, I'm going to show you how to change the transparency of this, the color and everything. Right now, you're going to want to usually start out with it pretty easy to see and move towards more invisible. You'll see that as we're drawing. But we're not going to get into much detail, but when you do get into a lot of detail with the cityscape or whatever you're doing, you want to dim that as it goes. So go to view, down to define grid, and it'll bring up this dialog box. You can save your perspective grid here. So once you've come up with the one that you want to save it. This is actually all that we need right now. So I'm going to save this as nexty, whatever, and that'll be the next lesson, because that's what we're going to be using. Although feel free to set it to whatever you want. It's probably easier to follow if you set it to the one I did. So, viewing angle, viewing distance, horizon height, we've kind of looked at those already. And if you set them here, you can't really see what they look like. So if you have something specific, put it in here. But other than that, don't really use this. Use the anchors, the widgets, handles, and everything I showed you. So what you do want to use this for is opacity. That'll make it 20% opacity, which you should have a good idea of what that looks like. It's currently at 50%. So setting it to 100 would probably be very distracting. Yeah, it's pretty distracting if that looks like lines themselves. So, set this to 30, and you can change the colors. Right grid is obviously, you can tell by the color on here what it does on here. So I'm not going to explain this. And these things, grid line every however many points, just determines how many grid lines there are, or where they occur. So that basically affects the little widget that increases the grid size. All this other stuff, don't worry about for right now. Keep the units on points. If you ever specifically want another unit, you just go there and change that. So let's change this to 1 point perspective, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now, this is where I said I wanted you to look up some things. So for each of these perspectives, look up, I'm saying Google 1 point perspective drawing, 2 point perspective drawing, 3 point perspective drawing. Drawings. You might want to look up best or good, 3 point perspective drawings, awesome 1 point perspective drawings, and just to see the kind of things that you're going to be creating with the Illustrator perspective tools. I know I'm reminding you again, as I did at the beginning, but it's this is a lot of work to set this up, to learn all these things. I want you to see what you can do with them. So, as you can see, it's saved nexty in 2 point perspective. So if I wanted to change it to a preset, I don't have to, if you're looking for them, just go down to perspective grid and just find it over here, wherever it is you saved it. Save some earlier ones. Although it should generally be the same as it was if you just saved your project. So let's go to 3 point perspective instead of defining it through define grid, because it's not too much I use that for, honestly, unless somebody gives me a specific stat like 45 degrees and you want to enter it precisely. But you can also change the grid type by going here, select 3 point, and so look up some 3 point perspective grids, grid drawings on Google. Go to image search, of course, and we'll be getting into, this is obviously as your third vanishing point, by the way. We'll be getting into all of those in the next 2 videos. So we won't be drawing anything quite as fantastic as what you'll be seeing with Google. That takes a lot of time, but perhaps you can by now. I would encourage it. Thanks for watching, and look up those. That's your homework. That's your first homework ever, so don't complain. Look up the perspective drawings on Google, because it's quite impressive.